What's up, Canes fans? All right, before we get to the podcast, which you're about to watch, just realize Brandon and I recorded it on Thursday afternoon. And then after we were done, the Miami Hurricanes got a commitment from one of the defensive tackles from Michigan State, Simeon Barrow. Huge pickup for the Miami Hurricanes. And who knows, by the time you watch this, there may be more. So understand that's what happens when you record things a day or two earlier, then things happen. It happens, but it's okay. All right, now here's the Real Ones Canes podcast. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Real Ones Canes podcast. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow him on all the socials at Brandon_O'Doy. I'm the Beast, Brian Leonard. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast, and go ahead and follow the show at Real Ones Canes. It's the Real Ones Canes podcast. It's episode 46 or 47, Brandon. We're getting old in the podcast world. We're vets. We're old heads at this point. So things are going well. But we got to jump in. I know we've got transfer portal stuff to get to, Brandon, but this past weekend was the NFL draft, and our Canes kind of took a hit a little bit. Hey, props to Cam Kitchens getting drafted in the third round, going to the Rams. 3 guys drafted in the 7th round, and then there was a bunch of undrafted free agents. But let's focus on the positive. Hey, congrats to that young man, Cam Kitchens. Good for him, right?
Yeah, good for Cam Kitchens. 3rd round pick. You know, he's still in the top 100 or so picks, and that's what you want to see. You want to be among that top 100 group, close to that as you possibly can. And at the end of the day, he's an All-American. He'll go down in history as one of the better safeties that have played in the modern era at the University of Miami. Cam's only problem is in the pre-draft process, he ran a 4.65 at the combine. You can't unsee that. You can't undo that. He's never been a burner. Cam's things has always been doing more with less. No one's going to outwork him. No one's going to get to the facility earlier. No one's going to stay later. No one's not going to have, film breakdowns like he has. He's a consummate professional. He's already conducted himself as a pro. But when you run that slow, you just can't get drafted in the first 2 rounds. And usually guys that get taken in the 2nd round are guys that could have been taken in the 1st round. And so what you look at is a guy that's basically a day 2 pick. He's still among the elite. He's going to fit in well in that, LA Rams culture. And he gets to play with a high school teammate. That's something that's beyond cool. He gets to play with Chatarius Tutu Atwell, who played with him at Miami Northwestern. A guy that should have been a Hurricane, by the way, that went to Louisville and caused the Canes quite a bit of problems, at Louisville. But nevertheless, they get to reunite. And it's about fit, really in the NFL. Because if you're not going to be a 1st-round pick, it's about fit. I think he's got a good fit. He did everything right when he was at college at the University of Miami. And that's why he got drafted still pretty high, even though he did not run well. So when you have other guys that don't, I'm sure he got rave reviews from the coaching staff, from everybody they talked to. He passed the scouting eye test, all of the background stuff, the intangibles. I'm sure he, passed that with flying colors. He had a bad combine, no big deal. He's not the slowest safety in the NFL, but he's the kind of guy that's going to play 10, 5, 7. He's going to play long in the NFL because he's super smart. He works hard, and that's a part of his DNA. He's a good culture kid. He's not running around doing things he shouldn't be doing. Money's not going to change him. You know what I mean? He's just one of those guys that's just ready to play NFL. And he may have, this is crazy to say, he might be a better pro than he was in college. And so he'll have things he have to work on because he's not the most athletic and the quickest guy. But he's going to study his way through it and work his way through it. And, it was nice for him to see. The other guys that went late, some of them are surprising beasts and some of them are not. I'm going to let you guess which ones, I think are which one.
So the Hurricanes had 3 guys taken in the 7th round. Leonard Taylor went to the Jets. That's the undrafted free agents. The Miami Hurricanes had 3 guys taken in the 7th round. right? Jaden Davis went off the board to the Cardinals at pick 226. We had Matt Lee. He'll end up being the backup center for the Cincinnati Bengals. He went off the board at pick 237. And then the Hurricanes had James Williams go off the board to the Titans at 242. Let's talk about those three guys. Jaden Davis, a one-year kid that came in, I believe it was from Oklahoma, right?
Yeah.
To play cornerback, did really well, and, got himself drafted. Matt Lee, I thought was going to go higher, to be honest with you, because I really feel like he did a great job at the center position for the University of Miami. But I think he ends up in a good spot with the Bengals. And then James Williams was the one that I was scratching my head about. He decided to leave early, and I know he's had all sorts of ups and downs in his life, but he did get drafted in the Titans. What are your thoughts just on those three guys that went in the 7th round?
Yeah, I'll start with Williams first because I have the most to say. I've known James Williams since he was 6 years old, playing at Bunch Park. And just the fact that he was drafted, he's now in the NFL, that's a dream come true. He has had trial, tribulation, and trouble in his life, losing his mother at an early age, being raised by his grandmother predominantly. At the end of the day, he's a guy that came to Miami with a lot of fanfare. I think he played out of position, and that is one of the things that may have cost him some draft stock. I think James played well at safety, but he played better in the box, maybe as an outside backer, rush type guy. He's going to be, one of those hybrid dudes in the league. You still don't find guys like that. I think you don't win the Clemson game without James Williams. Their defensive back coach told me after the game, I told him not to run that way because he's too long. You can't get around him. And in the league, that's something that, you can't live without. But because, again, he did not test well, did not run fast, and, that did not surprise me. But because I've had James in combines at Football Hotbed as a high school kid, you cannot run away from the clock. You've got to figure out a way to test and do it well. It's something that, really whoever was managing that situation should have put more emphasis in. I just find it hard to believe a guy with his athletic ability couldn't have gotten into the 4.5s. Like I really, really frustrated with the management and the agentship of James Williams and to some extent Cam Kitchens. There's just no way that you can spend that much time in the pre-draft process. You're already in South Florida where all of the pre-draft stuff really takes place, and you can't get those guys to shave 100th off of their 40 times. I just don't believe that. And so I don't know who's to blame, but nevertheless, the Titans really like him. I think he has a great shot to make that team. Matt Lee going late in the rounds, that was a bit of a shocker. But as well as he played as a Miami Hurricane, that doesn't mean he projects to be a great pro. I think he's got a guy that, will make a practice squad or make rosters. He's really smart. I think that's going to be good for him. And then with Davis, I think he improved his draft stock by coming to Miami and being, pretty much locked down. He had one bad game against Tez Walker, who went really late, way later than I thought he was going to go in the 4th round. And that's pretty much it. I mean, he was a great matchup with Porter. I mean, the Canes defense, especially the defensive backs, they were not an issue this year. Miami played really soundly defensively, didn't give up major big plays. And like I said, that was really good. If anything, they were kept on the field too long because of inefficiencies on the offensive side of the ball. And so I think he gets drafted because he came to Miami. He was, for all intents and purposes, benched at Oklahoma, and his career kind of came to a standstill, found a home in Miami as an undersized guy. I think he'll be a slot type of guy in the league. And because he's technically sound and he's one of those hard worker type guys that understands and knows he doesn't have a lot of room for error, I think he's going to come in with humility, and he has a shot to, eventually be a pretty good pro. So very disappointing that, Miami couldn't muster up, nothing but a bunch of, 7th round picks. And it kind of makes you wonder because, I mean, you talk about on-field performance. One thing Al Golden, Mark Richt, particularly Golden in those years they had guys. Golden recruited guys that are still playing football to this day. Guys
Correct.
like Rashawn Scott, you know, the Deion Bushes of the world. I mean, he just won a championship with KC. Like, you can say whatever you want about those teams. Those teams produce pros. And that's what this is about. This is about getting guys that are good enough to play at the next level. And when you're not seeing guys being taken high in the draft and not being valued, it got to tell you something about how they're seen and the level of play that they have. Florida State had 6 guys drafted in the top 100. You know what I mean? Like, that's a big deal.
For sure. So, and then there was the guys that were drafted, Brandon, and this is where I was scratching my head, especially with 2 of them. Leonard Taylor goes to the Jets. Javion Cohen goes to the Browns. Tyler Harrell goes to the Jets. Those 3 guys, at least 2 of them, with Leonard Taylor and Javion Cohen, I thought were going to get drafted. Brendan, at the beginning of the season, Leonard Taylor looked like a definite first-round pick. He didn't get drafted. How does that happen?
Well, he had a terrible season. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if he were any more impactful beast, the Georgia Tech loss doesn't happen. We couldn't get to the quarterback on the last drive. And he was just sitting there and able to slice this up. He had his best season last year in 2022. He should have left after that, although I don't think he was, you know, able to do so based on, you know, eligibility for the draft. But the reality of the situation is he did not play like a first rounder. Had he done that, Miami would have quite possibly, you know, been a 9-10 win team. The shining star on the defensive line was a true freshman who was at prom the year before. It boggles my mind, truly, you know, why people can't wrap their arms around the fact that, you know, Taylor did not do what he was supposed to do. Yeah, he had a first-round grade, but guess who also had a first-round grade or was being talked about as a first-rounder? A quarterback by the initials of TVD. And so
why?
No, because every time I will take this platform and this podcast to push it and shove it because I feel completely robbed. I can feel completely robbed. I think you tossed a great opportunity down the drain last season by continuing to believe in him. You got 3 years on tape with this guy, and it's just like, what more do you have to see? But moving on and getting back to Taylor, I just think Taylor did not have the season he needed to have. I think he needed better advice. I think he needed much better advice. Whoever told him to go into the draft, it's like you tweeted, come back, get paid. You're not going to go to school for nothing.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So the minimum salary in the NFL, which is what most of these guys that go undrafted and you know, if they make the team, is like $700 and something thousand, maybe $800,000, which, you know, is a lot of money in relative to what the average Joe is making, right? The average guy out there, the average woman out there is not making $800,000. So I get that. But to be honest with you, they can make close to that with NIL deals in college, right? They can still support their families, get what they need to get, but also improve themselves by coming back to school and maybe going higher to sign an even better contract and having a better chance to make the team. I just, you know, like, there's a bunch of guys, and the example that always stands out to me is Joe Yerby, right? He's a guy that left early, that everyone knew shouldn't have left early, but he had family situations. He was trying to take care of his family. There was all sorts of financial situations, right, that he had, and he left early. And then he doesn't end up making it in the NFL. So now what? But these days with NIL, you don't have to make that mistake. You don't have to go into the draft if you're making NIL money. You're able to, you know, support your entire family, make sure they're taken care of, make sure your siblings got what they need to get, what your mommy needs to get, what your auntie needs to get, whatever it is. You could do that still in college and improve yourself in the draft. So I just find it, I just feel like this. If you're not a sure top 100, top 3-4 round pick, and there's any questions, and you have eligibility left, come back. Unless you don't believe personally that you can do any better. In which case, I don't know why you're playing football.
Well, let me put this out to you, Beast, and I'm going to say this very delicately.
Okay.
Some guys don't have the option of coming back.
Okay.
And I don't know what the case was with Taylor. I do know the case with Joe Yerby. You don't always have the option to come back.
Right.
And at the end of the day, when things look silly, there's usually more than meets the eye. The Irby situation is a perfect example of that. There may be some off the field things that take place in consideration to a career. Some may have things to do with academics. Some may have things to do with, just how you're living your life on campus or off campus. And so there are factors to be considered. So I can't say all of these guys should have come back. I feel like James Williams could have come back. I know I feel a lot better about this season on defense. Would he come back? I mean, you get taken in the 3rd, 4th round. That's kind of the threshold. You get taken in the 5th, 7th round, you probably should have come back, Well, and so at the end of the day, I think, because it's hard to make a team, Beast. It's really difficult to make a team. Getting drafted late, you get stuck on a practice squad, all of these things. And it's like, you don't have any control over the fit you have. Sometimes people are just taking best player on the board, and that doesn't necessarily help you in your career. A lot of what allows you to stay in the NFL is going to a team that works best. You see a lot of these quarterbacks, they get quote unquote considered bust, but you don't get a chance to run the offense you want to run or the offense that's best suited to you. So when you get drafted by a team and they don't have a good plan for you, you're going to bust.
Here's the bottom line. A couple things. One, if let's say you have eligibility left, your choices are to go in the draft, right? And you're not welcome. Maybe you're not welcome back. So there's not a fit at the campus that you were at. Well, instead of going to the draft, go in the portal. You have that option now. Find a better fit. And 2, 90 players right now. Each NFL team has 90 players on their roster. They have to cut it down to under 60. That means a third of the guys that are in mini camps, that are in the facility right now, a third of the guys on every NFL team are going to be gone. And a lot of them, sure, there'll be some that'll make a practice squad, but there'll be a ton of them that'll just be out on the street. That's the bottom line. And let me ask you a question. Do you really think most NFL GMs care about the guys they're cutting and what's going to happen to them after they get cut and how they'll be able to support themselves? No, man, it's business. They don't care. So you have to really think about that when you're making these decisions. Like, there's no better time in college football, right? As we're still working through the NIL and we're talking about collective bargaining agreements and things that might be in place later but aren't in place now or whatever. There's no better time in college football for you to come back to college and make money and have security if you're welcome back, right? You and I have been to college, man. I'd give anything to go back to college. You feel secure when you're in college, right? You got a dorm to live in. You got 3 squares a day, right? You got classes to go to. You got everything is built in. The support you need, it's all there for you on a college campus. Once you get into the real world, man, it's hard. Yeah. It is hard. So
no, I agree with everything you're saying. These are complicated decisions, and you know this. You've known guys who've gone pro. You've known guys that have busted. You know the pool of agents, especially pre-NIL. So when you see guys making bad decisions when NIL is involved, it leads me to believe there's just too much. Mario Cristobal is a respected coach. He's going to get understanding from, scouts and GMs like, hey, where is this guy really fit? I know he can call around and figure out, where a guy's going to go. I'm sure people told James, it ain't going to be what you think, buddy. Like, you need to come back. You need to, let's put you in another position, because some of these linebacker, depth concerns. Can you imagine, Kiko Maigoa lined up right next to James Williams instead of necessarily Wesley Bissaint on that edge? Can you imagine trying to run on a defense like that? You know what I mean? With Daryl Porter or, Devontae Brown on the boundary. Like, can you imagine that? That's not going to happen.
No.
With Ruben Bain, Messidor and some of these transfers up front, Armando Blunt, you know what I mean? Like, can you imagine somebody trying to run on that? That ain't happening. And I know that's not good English, but that's the truth. And so I just think that, There are factors that we may never know the answers to. It's sad. You don't want to see guys get drafted lower than you think they should go. You definitely don't want to see guys undrafted. Like if you're a senior and you have no more eligibility, you're undrafted, you're to Corey Couch, you get picked up as an undrafted free agent, that's a blessing. He was a long shot to make the league.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? Those types of things. James Williams, a 5-star kid. He came to Miami. Was a big time get, for the staff. I believe he's a Diaz recruiter, if I'm not mistaken. So, at the time when he came in, and I remember DVD telling me he had to stand on the table for Cam Kitchens. The staff was not going to take him. He had to stand on the table for a guy who has his name in the rafters at Miami.
Right.
That's what DVD told me personally. So, it's just things happen, man. I don't know why all the time, but, I'm disappointed in the draft just like everybody else. And, you hope it doesn't. I doubt that happens again. I think Miami has a chance to have 2 or 3 first rounders, if not 2 or 3 high, round guys. I don't want to speculate.
Slow your roll
too
for a
early.
second. Just slow your roll for a second. Just let's not get ahead of ourselves. But we do. That actually is a good segue.
You're telling me to calm down and not sip the orange and green. Look at the tables turning. Maybe it's the new lighting I have that's in the new microphone that I have.
Possible. Possible. It's possible. All right, that actually segues to the next segment. We got to talk about the portal, but we also got to talk about the portal in relation to how all in this Miami Hurricanes program and staff is right now. We gotta get to it because there's some things are shaping up, some things are happening, some things are kind of coming together that it's both good and bad, and we'll talk about that on the other side. Hey, subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening right now, whether it is Amazon, Spotify, Apple. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. The YouTube numbers are flying high. That's awesome. But go subscribe to the audio version just to thank us. Give us a thumbs up and write a little comment. Hey, Brandon, we love him. He's got great information. Or Beast, he's out to lunch, whatever it is. Write a comment. That helps us as well. Follow us on socials. Follow Brandon at Brandon_O'Doy. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. We'll be back on the other side. It is the Real Ones Canes podcast. Welcome back to the Real Ones Canes podcast. He is Brandon O'Doy. I'm the Beast, Brian London. Hey, follow us on all the socials. Go subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. Brandon, we got to dig in. So we are recording this Thursday afternoon. The portal officially closed last night, Wednesday night. Grad transfers can still come in through this evening, I believe. It may take a few days for some paperwork to show up, so we're not really sure if the Canes are done or not done. I know this. Before we get to some of the particulars about some guys that signed and didn't sign and defensive tackles and all that stuff, here's what I know. The Canes got the number 1 quarterback in the portal. They got the number 1 running back in the portal in Damian Martinez. And they just got the number 1 receiver in the portal in Sam Brown. So the top quarterback, top running back, top receiver. If that doesn't tell you that they are working their butts off to get the talent they need to compete, I don't know what does. But with that sort of talent acquisition, that puts a lot of pressure, not only on your head coach, but your offensive coordinator to dial up some pretty good offensive play calls for this group of offensive players that look to be pretty elite.
Good players make good coaches, Beast. And at the end of the day, I said this earlier this week. If you're Mario Cristobal and you want to get to the mountaintop, you've got to maximize what you do well. He's a great recruiter. He's a great relationship builder and maintainer. So when you can go out and you're funded well, and NIL is not a problem here, and everybody likes to talk in college football about how well funded the University of Miami is. So what? That's the game. I know for a fact the University of Alabama did the things that they needed to do over the course of their tenure, and they built a roster that was elite. Yes, you have to coach it, but you're probably coaching 1 or 2 games versus coaching every single game that you play. Talent wants to play with talent. All 4 of these guys said, Cam Ward was influential in signing on. When you got the number one quarterback that is being seen as the guy out of the portal, and these portal guys are in the portal for a reason. A lot of them like, hey, look, I've accomplished what I need to accomplish. I want to go, A, get paid, and two, I want to go win, and I want to go to a good environment. Miami is not lacking on any of those things. So you have to credit Mario Cristobal and his staff. There are a lot of people who work behind the scenes. They do a very good job of identifying the talent that they want and going out and getting it. And listen, Mario Cristobal and his staff have earned, we talked about this via text before the show, they've earned the benefit of the doubt here because, as you said, number one quarterback, they pulled him back from the NFL draft. That looked like a very smart move. He would not have gone in the first round with 6 quarterbacks. Like,
correct.
No, he would have been a second round pick at most. Why not come back, improve your stock, prove you can do it in the South? ACC have a lot of tools to do it with. And, oh, by the way, make a few dollars doing so. He didn't take much of a discount to stay in college. And you got the number one running back. You got a really good freshman running back, now true sophomore running back coming back. You got some more backfield makes to give you some depth. You got a really good offensive line to run behind, brand new center who comes in. You go get a nice target in receiver. You got a really good true freshman. You got a great veteran who came back for you. You got, a breakout player in Isaiah Horton. There's a lot to like on offense. So, Beast, when you identify, you bring in 4 guys, 5 guys into town, and 4 leave as commits, hey, that's great. And so the guy that left, we're not talking so much about him, but the defensive end from Tennessee, my understanding is that there's a numbers issue here. This kid wants this, and Miami's here. And so what has to happen over the course of the next several days is they have to do this. The family has to give, and Miami has to give. And if that process can be worked out, he's going to be a Hurricane as well. My thinking is there's a little bit of concern at the defensive tackle spot. But again, I lean back to earlier comments. I would give them the benefit of the doubt. I was told they feel pretty good about their number one target. And all I can take is the word of the individuals that shared it with me. I'm not at liberty to say who, but I think people know we're plugged in over here at the Real Ones Came podcast. Comes from a very reliable source. And again, they earned the benefit of the doubt with Cam Ward, which I had lots of questions about because I was already ready to move on. I said, hey, man, listen, why are we wasting all this time? Because if we're going to waste this amount of time and not get the kid, but we did get him. And so, again, there's a lot to like about the 4-for-4 we got this weekend, and there's still a few pendings. I think they're the most important. Not to say Damian Martinez, the running back from Oregon State, isn't important. Not to say Samuel Brown isn't important. Wide receiver gives you, some veteran presence. A little concerned about some of his off-the-field musings. We do not need a locker room headache here. No. But hopefully they vetted that out. Shannon Dawson obviously is familiar with the young man, probably recruited him out of high school. So there's some safety there. But, man, it's the DNs and the D tackles for me, man. That's what I'm getting excited about. That's the days of old. That's Nevin Shapiro. That's defensive line. That's championship football. That's what it's about. Well, I'm standing on business.
Yeah, they're deep at the end. I am worried about the tackle. They were targeting those 2 kids from Michigan State. One came down, didn't commit. The other didn't even bother to take a trip.
The better one canceled his visit. That's the thing that I'm concerned about. And, one came down. We don't know. I mean, it's possible we could have told him no, or he can't commit. I don't know how things go. The deal is this. You got Moulton, who comes back. His brother was pretty decent here. The younger Moulton. You got Mesidor. I think Bain ends up moving inside because, like you said, we're deep on the edge. It's about getting the best talent. We've got, a young man from Atlanta that played at Langston Hughes. He should be ready to contribute after a redshirt year, but let's not act like losing Harrison Hunt. And
they got guys like Marley Cook. They got some guys.
They got Marley Cook in the portal, but he's not being really talked about. So that means it leads me to believe that they saw spring, and it's like, and if you got the guy who's so good, why are you still trying to cut ties? And it just, I don't listen to what you say. I look at what you do. What you do tells me how you really feel about people, and they're still out hunting. That means they don't feel too good about it as far as like where they're, because like you said, and I think you were going this place, the expectations have risen.
Right.
Now
Yes.
it is just, oh yeah, it's just Cam Ward, but he got a bunch of rookie receivers outside of Xavier Restrepo and Jacoby George. Everybody is like almost never played, right? So, and you have no tight end, and the best guy you have is a true freshman. You know what I'm saying? So who are his targets? So now you go out and you get him a nice running back option so you can't stack the box on him. Don't forget he can move himself, and you go get a veteran receiver, and you bolster the defensive, unit a little bit as well. So at the end of the day, there's a lot to like here. But I think the Canes are not done yet. And these next moves, to me, could be the most significant.
Tell me if I'm wrong. I feel better, much better, like exponentially better about the offense than the defense.
Yeah, the offense is a little bit ahead right now. See, defensively, there are just a few questions that.
Although, let me say this: I feel better about the defensive coaching staff than I do maybe the offensive side of things. Like I
I'm
feel
not
like
worried
Lance,
about.
like Lance,
I'm not worried about.
But listen. I'm not worried about Shannon Dawson, but I love Lance Guidry, and a lot of those guys on that side.
Yes, and the LSU coaching job coming open. Thank God for Blake Baker, who's a former defensive coordinator here, and he got that job. Listen, we needed continuity. We need to go into the offseason with the same coaches that we're going to have for the fall. This is the first time doing that under Mario. 3 years in, it's the first time doing that. So that was the biggest thing. Number two, I liked how Guidry rushed the ball. I liked how he schemed. He was a breath of fresh air. He's got his guy back there. Again, we're going to see how critical Jamil Adai is. But my understanding is Chevis Jackson has coaching chops. Will people buy in? Will it be too soon? I don't know. He does not have the talent of Adai. He does not. Tyreek Stevenson is not walking through that door.
No.
Jayden Davis is not walking through that door. James Williams and Cam Kitchens ain't walking through that door. Okay? You got to break in these new safeties. Yeah, you get some help on the corners. Didn't look that good in spring. Let's be honest. There was a lot of blue, so hopefully our receivers are just that good. But at the end of the day, there's going to have to be some coaching involved in that defensive backfield. Those analysts, all those guys, they got their hands full. And I wouldn't mind. Yeah, you got your boy from Marshall. He's going to know what you can do. He came from Marshall. That doesn't excite me. And yeah, I'm not going to make excuses for Coach Dawson, but I like him a lot more with a better quarterback. I do. I just think he's got way more that he can call. I think he's fine. Texas A&M gaming up, he was perfect. When the quarterback started to decline, I saw him, more pressure being put on him. I'm not going to put, Guidry above him. I think I like him the same. I think it's fair to judge him when he has all the weapons, because Guidry had all the weapons last year. Plus, he had a freshman that played out of his mind.
But let's listen. 3 guys I love: D-Nick and Jason Taylor and Salavea. Like those are 3 great coaches you have.
What has D-Nick done that has everybody just like, oh, it's the D-Nick show? Like,
I don't know. I mean,
obviously, got a transfer in that was out of this world.
Obviously, Kiko makes him look
better.
He
had a very veteran guy in court. I'll know more about D-Nick this year to me because he's got to develop someone. He's got to develop. He in order to play 3 backers, somebody got to step up.
Yeah, I mean, although listen, they're primarily going to play 2.
Yeah, but they play 3 and it happens at critical times. You don't remember when Corey Flack came in?
Yes.
What I mean? Like,
yeah.
I so I mean that's a big deal. Like you ain't gotta have 50 snaps in order to be, like important. So yeah, and that third guy is unproven. So we gotta see.
I really don't want to get into this in May, but we both
the roster's almost set. I'm ready to talk fall.
Well, no, but an article came down where dude had us losing to USF, which is funny because when you talked about trap games, right, for the last like 3-4 podcasts, like as soon as the schedule came out, you talked about USF trap game, USF trap game.
It is a trap game.
Right. So we were on the same page.
It's the trappiest of traps. It's a trap game. It's awful. It's terrible. It shouldn't be on this schedule. It should not be on this schedule. It's the same way Alabama shouldn't have gone to USF. Think about it. When that game was scheduled, they were terrible. Yeah. You knew that wasn't going to be the case for that long. There's no reason at all we're going to USF.
The old school, I'm just going to say like the old school, like back in the day argument was, well, if you go to USF, that's like a recruiting thing to recruit that area. You get those kids into the stadium and watch you play for that area.
Alex Golesh can coach. He's the Saban killer. He had Saban on the ropes. Over there. He literally almost retired the man in one game. They won 17-3. He's the same guy that beat him at Tennessee. That's not somebody you want to play around with. No. He's got portal kids too. No, Naquan Wright. Ready to push it in on the University of Miami for not offering him. No, I don't want a freshman All-American in the quarterback they have. DVD, who's motivated to prove that he should have been the cornerbacks coach. No, I don't like it at all. I don't like it. It's trappy.
Okay.
It's Middle Tennessee-ish. It's Georgia Tech-ish. It's trappy. I'm on record. It's trappy. I don't like it.
We're gonna make Real Ones Canes podcast T-shirts that say "It's trappy." That's gonna be a T-shirt that you'll be able to get somewhere.
We need some fans, man. We gotta get some fans doing some stuff. It's trappy. I don't like it.
Okay,
I'm not saying we're gonna lose the game. I want to be clear. It's trappy, which means that if a few things go wrong, it could be disastrous.
Let's just move back for a second. So that guy, the article has us using USF, but the bottom line is he has Miami losing 3 games. The fans, after the portal, right today, the fans would tell you it's 10 wins or bust. That Miami has to win 10 or the season's a failure. Obviously, we can make a case that they only may win 8 or 9. Where do you fall? Listen, I don't need to go win-loss right now. Like, I'll wait till the fall to do that. But what is the sense you're getting about what type of team this can be? Can this team get to double digits, or are we still a year away from that?
No, I think it's an all-in year for reasons I've explained to you off camera.
Right.
I think 10 wins is the floor here. I think.
The
only games that should be toss-ups. I mean, you're gonna out-talent 80% of this schedule. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
If you survive the trap, and you should. I mean, and let's not give away the game in Gainesville. I mean, you're still playing an SEC team. It's not. I mean, yeah, Norville. I mean, Napier hasn't done a great job, but he's still a football coach. He still has opportunities.
They still have talent.
Yeah, they still have talent. And by the way, he gets all offseason to prepare for the game. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, and he's motivated because he wins that game. Now everybody shuts up about, because it's a great job-saving win for him. I mean, and I think the loser of that game is on the hot seat.
For sure.
That's a hot seat game, and for that reason, it's going to have national. What I would like to see Miami do is go in and dominate from the beginning. Not sure that's possible, but that would be a positive outcome. So now you get out of Gainesville with a W, you survive the trap at USF, and then there are really only 2 games that you're not going to be necessarily the most talented team. I think you're on the road at Louisville and you're at home against Florida State. Now, if you go into Louisville undefeated and you survive, when you come home against Florida State, it's going to be like the Notre Dame game. It's going to be the biggest game in the modern era or since the Notre Dame game of 2018.
Right. For sure.
And undefeated, and God forbid Florida State's undefeated, or even if they're one loss, it's going to be World War III. And so all of those things play into your favor because you're playing the game at home. So And yeah, and if you come through that slate clean, it's 10 wins easy, and now you're talking CFP.
But if you're talking trap games, right? USF, I actually watched
Syracuse on the road last game, undefeated, walking in like you did at Pitt a couple years ago.
Making the trip to Cal, that's not an easy situation because
cross-country trip.
Yeah, cross-country trip.
A motivated Miami-based quarterback, same alma mater as Mario Cristobal, Columbus graduate,
yep.
Fernando Mendoza, ready to show UM why he should have been picked up, gonna slice and dice.
Yeah, and they got Ott, who's a great running back. And then, always have to worry about Georgia Tech on the road in Atlanta, and Syracuse.
Trappy.
And then we talked about Syracuse in the Dome, late in the year.
Trappy.
So listen, there's probably about five you feel really good about. 5 or 6 you feel really good about. 2 you really are 50-50, and then there's a few more that are like, that could be an issue.
Yeah, I feel great about FAMU at home. Can't wait to see the band. I feel great about Ball State at home. Can't wait to see Tanner Koziel, the big time tight end they have. I feel great about,
Virginia Tech coming in, they're not what they used to be.
Virginia Tech. Feel great about.
Although you got Manny Diaz and Duke coming in.
Manny Diaz returns home. I still feel good.
And then you got Wake Forest.
He just doesn't have the talent. I think that there's a talent. Wake Forest. I'm not concerned about that. Trappy games include on the road at Syracuse and USF, and then you got toss-up games against Louisville and also Florida State, and they come really close together. That's the biggest problem. It's playing those games like almost back to back. So that's a tough part of the schedule. But hey, look, at some point you got to take the kid gloves off. You got to be legit. And that I think we're there. I think we're there as a program. I think Miami Hurricanes are there. They've done what they needed to do off the field. It's time to coach it up and get ready to play some football.
All right. Well, that'll do it for us this week. Next week, we might have some more portal things to wrap up. Start looking at how the summer's going to go, how the offseason's going to go. And we may need to talk a little hoops here because there's the men's side. We need to get on that. There's some situations going on there. So we will discuss that and more next week. Appreciate everyone for listening and watching. Go subscribe to the podcast wherever you get to the podcast. We'll see you next time. It's the Real Ones Canes Podcast. Peace!